February 18th, 1952. 24-year-old tailor store assistant Arnold Schuster is on his way to work. As he goes to catch the subway, he sees a familiar face.
He looks over at a guy, and he looks again, and he realizes the man is the infamous bank robber Willie Sutton.
After a bold prison escape, Willie Sutton is on the loose. Schuster, the law-abiding citizen, decides to do his bit for society.
Arnold followed him and then called police.
Sutton is quickly arrested and sent back to prison. Schuster's courageous actions turn him into an instant celebrity.
He's on all the talk shows, he's in all the newspapers with his picture.
The country has fallen in love with Arnold Schuster, but not everyone sees him as a hero, especially New York mafia boss Albert Anastasia. In Anastasia's book, calling the cops on someone makes you a rat, and ratting is the worst crime of all.
Anastasia sees this Schuster, and he's mad. He's a rat, and he hates rats, and he's infuriated by it.
Anastasia's wrath is not to be taken lightly. A ruthless and volatile killer. When Anastasia is mad, he strikes out.
So even though this guy was just enjoying his 15 minutes of fame, Anastasia puts a hit on the kid.
As the unsuspecting Schuster walks home from work, he is ambushed by a lone gunman.
Two bullets, one in each eye, one in the groin. Signs of a mob hit.
New York's Good Samaritan has paid the ultimate price for angering the mafia's most volatile boss. But in the end, this killing would mark the beginning of Anastasia's own downfall. Albert Anastasia arrived in America 35 years earlier, working as a deckhand on an Italian merchant ship. Along with his two brothers, he sees a new life in New York.
So he simply jumped ship and he went to work on the docks, like just about every other poor Italian immigrant.
He quickly discovers that life on the Brooklyn docks is no fairy tale.
The docks in the days when Anastasia first reached them were a deadly place and practically lawless.
You saw men that walked around with the bailing hooks. These were the big hooks they used to lift cargo. A lot of personal arguments were settled by bailing hooks, and you could see a lot of men walking around with big scars on their faces where somebody had lit into them with a bailing hook.
In no time at all, the strapping teenage Anastasia establishes himself as a feared figure in this violent arena.
He was a strong guy. He had enormous hands for his size. They were like steel. If he hit you, you knew it wasn't unusual for one punch from him to break one of your bones.
Being known as a tough guy leads to money-making opportunities. At 18, Albert Anastasia is ready to make the step from violence to crime.
Now, at that time, a lot of thievery was going on, people stealing things from the shipments that never got to where they were supposed to go.
Anastasia is soon running a successful gang of Dockside thieves, but his success brings him into competition with a rival on the Brooklyn docks, a man by the name of Joe Torino. Anastasia doesn't know it, but a brutal chain of events will rocket him to infamy. As far as Torino is concerned, if Anastasia wants to operate on his docks, he'll have to pay for the privilege.
He wants a piece of the action.
Anastasia has decided that he won't let anyone extort money from him. As the dispute turns physical, neither side will back down. And eventually, Anastasia erupts in an uncontrolled rage. front of witnesses, Anastasia beats Torino to death.
Killing was not that uncommon on the Brooklyn waterfront in those violent days, but not that kind of killing. And this is what's stuck in their minds, and every single one of them mentioned it to the police. Albert liked it. It made Albert very talked about, obviously.
Anastasia will pay for taking this life. The Docksides may be a violent world, but when a man is beaten to death in front of dozens of people, the police are going to act. Convicted of Torino's murder, Anastasia is sentenced to death at New York's notorious Sing Sing prison. While there, not even the specter of the electric chair can tame him.
He's still beating up people and their fellow inmates.
Anastasia is as violent as ever. Not even hardened convicts feel safe with him around. But for once, Anastasia's violent and vicious reputation will work to his advantage when one of his outbursts is noticed by a particular inmate.
He comes to the attention of the barber in the prison, the guy with a nickname, the Shiv.
The Shiv is not just a barber. He's a scout for prolific criminal gangs that operate outside the prison, and Anastasia intrigues him.
He kind of says, hey, this guy's got some potential.
The Shiv believes Anastasia's skill set could be ideal for one client in particular. The man is a rising lieutenant in one of New York's most powerful Italian gangs, Charles Lucky Luciano.
Lucky Luciano was the ultimate mob boss. He was ruthless, he knew what he wanted, and he wasn't afraid to go after it.
In 1920s New York, Luciano's gang is one of the many engaged in a violent war for control over the lucrative trade in illegal alcohol. This is the time of Prohibition.
The Volstead Act, also known as Prohibition, went into effect in 1920. It barred the production, distribution, and sale of alcohol. It had a huge loophole. That loophole was it didn't ban possession, which meant people, if you get their hands on it, they would continue to drink.
And it just so happens alcohol is a commodity Luciano is able to provide, if he can just secure a steady supply. So Luciano has to control the Brooklyn docks, a key source of illegally imported alcohol which flows into the city. The Shiv believes Anastasia's violent reputation and intimate knowledge of the docks could be priceless for Luciano.
He gets the word back to Luciano. Says, hey, I got a guy in here that you could really use. Like a baseball scout says, hey, I got Mickey Mantle here. But there's a problem. You face the electric chair.
For a man like Luciano, this is no more than a minor hurdle. First, Luciano uses top lawyers to arrange a last-minute stay of execution for the young killer. The lawyers trigger a retrial by having Anastasia's original conviction overturned.
Luciano's connections get the conviction thrown out on a technicality.
He entered prison as a violent kid, but in 1922, with Luciano pulling the strings, a transformed Anastasia steps off death row, out of prison, and into a new life.
Albert's legend was born. Everybody talked about the guy who beat the electric chair.
Owing his life to Luciano, it is time for Anastasia to repay the debt. Fresh out of Sing Sing, Anastasia is sent to the front line in the Italian and Irish booze war, the Brooklyn docks.
The struggle between the Italians and the Irish for control of the waterfront was war. And I mean war.
no time at all, Anastasia is proving his worth for the Italians.
He was a very valuable soldier, and as everybody discovered very quickly, he's a psychopath. He'd kill you at the drop of a hat. If somebody said to him, go kill this guy, he'd say, okay. And he would kill him without any remorse whatsoever.
Soon the Italians are securing control of the docks, and with the import of illegal booze into New York, all with the help of Anastasia. But Luciano can see a problem. The racket of bootlegging is based on ethnic divisions, with each group in a violent struggle to maintain its share of the business.
You've got this almost military-like conflict, which is just unprecedented and completely sort of freaking people out.
With bodies littering the streets, the gang wars were becoming a scandal, drawing attention from the police and hitting profits.
Luciano understood that violence was bad for business.
Luciano envisions a better way.
We're going to cooperate. I don't care that he's Jewish. He doesn't care if I'm Italian. Guess what? See this dollar bill here? Okay, does that look Jewish or Italian to you? We sit down, we organize on a business-like basis, we assign territories. Everybody is going to get well.
Not all the bosses saw things Luciano's way.
There was a generational split. And the split was between the old-time bosses who were still prisoners of the old ways, particularly Sicilians, who were very, very clannish.
If he can take charge, he can restructure these gangs into a truly organized business where everyone will benefit.
And Luciano ultimately decided these old mustache beats have to go.
For Luciano, the only way to do that is to take out the two leading bosses of New York. The first in line being Joe, the boss, Masseria. But he needs a trusted killer.
He had to select 4 gunmen to do the job. Now, these gunmen had to be just exactly right. And one of them he selected was Albert Anastasia.
April 15th, 1931. Luciano invites Joe Masseria to lunch at his favorite restaurant on Coney Island, New York's fairground. Masseria can't refuse.
They had a nice lunch. They were sitting there playing cards. It was all very, very nice. And at a certain time, he looked at his watch and said, oh, I got to take a leak. And at that appointed moment, 4 gunmen burst into the restaurant.
Anastasia, leading the hit squad, pulls the trigger with the death blow to the head. Luciano knows he's found the perfect hitman.
Carrying that out established him in Luciano's eyes as someone who could be totally relied on.
6 months later, the plan is complete when Luciano has remaining boss, Sal Maranzano, brutally murdered. The coup d'etat complete, Luciano can now finally achieve a perfect criminal organization, and he knows exactly where Anastasia will fit in. But first, he divides the 5 boroughs of New York to be run by 5 crime families, who, along with the heads from Buffalo and Chicago, will meet in a group known as the Commission.
What they did was take the old Sicilian mafia idea and meld it with American business method. It would be a nationwide combine run strictly as a business enterprise. The business would be crime.
They would try to do everything in an organized, regulated way.
Even murder.
Luciano was not opposed to violence. If killings had to be committed, they would be committed.
What he needs is a force that will police the mafia. So Luciano also creates a body that will kill on behalf of the Commission. It will become known as Murder Incorporated.
He decided we needed a group of professional hitmen who could carry out whatever killings had to be done.
And Luciano needs just the right person to run it. So who does he choose? None other than his favored killer, Albert Anastasia.
Albert Anastasia was the perfect model. Within the mafia, Anastasia was recognized as a ruthless, unflinching killer.
So with orders from the commission, all future murders would be conducted by these professional killers. Hits are no longer personal vendettas, they are business. Luciano imposes strict rules that govern how Anastasia and Murder Incorporated should operate.
One of the chief rules, thou shalt not kill a boss. That's a no-no. You do not kill civilians.
You don't kill policemen, journalists, judges, politicians, and prosecutors because of the intense reaction that those assassinations would cause.
With these rules in mind, Anastasia is now set to kill whoever Luciano tells him to. From their office above the Midnight Rose candy store in Brooklyn, Luciano's vision of multinational cooperation starts in earnest as the Italian Anastasia works with the Jewish Louis Lepke Buchalter to carry out sanctioned murder.
Anastasia turns out to be the perfect person for this job. He's the go-between. Luciano's an Italian guy, Anastasia's an Italian guy. But Lepke, he's a Jewish guy. Luciano gives orders to Anastasia, who then works hand in hand with Lepke in carrying out these assignments.
Together, they handpick a team of Jewish and Italian hitmen, a lethal and effective combination.
The theory by using Jewish killers often is that if the victim was Italian, he wouldn't suspect somebody who didn't look Italian.
In Murder, Inc., religious beliefs don't matter. What does is a pride, even a pleasure, in your work.
There were members of Murder Incorporated who were genuine sadists. They genuinely enjoyed torturing people in horrible ways.
And Anastasia harnesses these brutal killers to professionalize murder wholesale. Hits are organized and efficient.
Most murders are carried out by people who know each other. The idea was these would murders be carried out by people who were strangers. Very difficult to track.
And with a new way of killing comes a whole new way of talking.
A murder order was called a contract. Now, sometimes the body would be left around for what they call the advertising budget. Somebody who had stolen money, he'd be found with his hands cut off. Somebody who had talked too much, they have his tongue cut out.
Albert Anastasia manages everything, but not one to take a back seat. Anastasia is a hands-on kind of leader.
Anastasia could have probably just said, you know what, here you go, kill this guy. But he doesn't do that. He enjoys killing and taking part of it. And they say he was involved personally in 60 murders himself. He was a guy that just could go out and kill. No compunction about it.
But the Merchant of Death was a home-loving psychopath.
They used to have a saying, there's the street devil and the house angel. And that basically is what he was. You know, he was one guy on the streets of Brooklyn. He was another guy in Fort Lee, New Jersey.
He's married to Elsa, a Canadian immigrant, 16 years his junior, who loves him dearly.
From 9 to 5, during his workday, he was out executing people. But then back home in New Jersey, he lived a pretty quiet life. So bizarre that somebody so ruthless and evil could go and be the ultimate family man after the workday.
As the head of Murder Incorporated, life is good for Anastasia. Luciano's dream of the perfect criminal organization is becoming a reality, and Anastasia is at the heart of it.
Bosses respected him. He had carried out their wishes too.
But Anastasia's Murder Incorporated is fast becoming a victim of its own success. The New York Mafia's growing crime wave brings attention from the public and the police. They're trying to clean up the streets, and hotshot special prosecutor Thomas Dewey is leading the gang-busting assault. Top of his list is crime lord Charles Lucky Luciano, and Dewey has the mandate to get his man.
He's probably the most powerful person in law enforcement, maybe even more than J. Edgar Hoover. He's focused on just these mobsters.
He felt, quite rightly, that their power had grown to a point where it was a danger to the Republic, and he decided he was going to do something about it.
For Luciano and the rest of the commission, Dewey's investigation is clearly a problem. Fearing for their livelihoods in the summer of 1935, Luciano, Anastasia, and other mobsters gather to discuss the emerging threat. Anastasia believes he can solve the Dewey problem forever.
Anastasia actually started to plot a way to assassinate him.
He staked out his morning routine. He borrowed a baby carriage, Anastasia himself, and he would walk this pram back and forth. He must have been the least convincing father ever, pushing this supposed baby around.
This raises alarm bells with the commission. They disagree, overruling Anastasia and reminding him of Luciano's rules.
As soon as they found out what he was up to, they pulled him back and said, listen, you're going to leave Dewey alone. We're not going to go after him.
You don't kill these people.
Only one guy was crazy enough to think he could do it, and that was Anastasia.
Unlike the commission, Anastasia doesn't see the bigger picture.
If Thomas Dewey had been assassinated, it's almost guaranteed that the top-level mobsters in New York City at the time would face incredibly intense pressure from both, city, state, and federal authorities.
Without knowing how close to death he was, Dewey and his team continue to pursue Luciano, who manages to shield all of his criminal activities from Dewey, apart from one.
He gets lucky on, of all things, running a prostitution ring. He charges them with hundreds of counts, probably every sexual encounter.
It's a trumped-up charge, but incredibly, it works. In June 1936, Luciano, the genius who created the modern mafia, is sentenced to a minimum of 30 years in prison.
He achieved the conviction of Luciano, which was incredible. I mean, this was the Lord High master criminal, and somehow he went down.
A conviction which a lot of people think was unfair and unjust.
For Anastasia, this is a massive blow. If the plan to kill Dewey had been carried out, his mentor wouldn't be behind bars. Things go from bad to worse when his nemesis, Dewey, decides his friend, Lepke Bukalta, is the next target.
The word gets to Lepke, you're next on Dewey's hit list.
So, in November 1936, with a murder charge against him, Lepke has to go on the run.
For many years, Louis Buchalter, known as Lepke, has been the worst industrial racketeer in America.
Fearing for his friend and partner in crime, Anastasia utilizes the Murder Incorporated network to keep Lepke in hiding for a long time.
They don't have any idea where he is. Some say he's overseas, he's went to Jerusalem.
$25,000 reward will be paid to the citizen who provides the information for this arrest.
Turns out he's in Brooklyn the whole time.
Now Anastasia, fearing that Lepke could face a similar outcome to Luciano, takes matters into his own hands and sets about destroying Dewey's case. This time, he doesn't hold back.
He's a guy that says witnesses have to go. And if somebody, God forbid, witnessed him killing him, that person was dead too.
Anastasia ensures there is no one who can testify in court against Lepke. With a list of rats provided by Lepke, he puts Murder Incorporated to work, eliminating key witnesses.
5 former Lepke associates have been shot. and 2 have disappeared. This fugitive must be found dead or alive.
But there is a problem. It is not enough. No one less than the director of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, is now insisting Lepke must be caught. So Dewey's team turn up the pressure.
There was so much publicity that it was decided we can't have him on the lam like this. There was too much pressure. It's got to end.
The commission call in Anastasia. They present him with a shocking solution. They're going to have to sacrifice Lepke to protect themselves, and Anastasia will play a vital role in this deed.
They say, here's what we're going to do. You, because the only guy that Lepke really trusts, you will tell him, we have worked out a deal with Dewey.
Now facing the ultimate predicament, Anastasia will have to turn his friend in. Acting on these orders, Anastasia meets with Lepke and convinces him that a deal is in place that will save him from the death penalty.
Lepke believes him. Why not? He's worked with him side by side. He's given him orders, seen him kill people. He has no reason to believe that Anastasia's going to lie to him.
August 24th, 1939. After an astonishing 3 years on the run, Anastasia drives the unsuspecting Lepke to a meeting with the FBI, where he believes he will turn himself over in exchange for leniency. But Anastasia has betrayed his friend and partner in crime. There is no deal.
Buchalter dutifully surrendered and, of course, immediately faced serious charges.
On March 4th, 1944, Lepke would become the only major mafia figure to be executed by electric chair.
The electric chair ends the career of gangster Louis Lepke Buchalter.
A burden Anastasia would shoulder for the rest of his life.
If he ever felt bad about something, this would probably been the one time.
He had to sacrifice a friend, but he knows there's little he can do about it.
As Luciano once said, if you have to send your mother to the execution block, you do it. If it helps the organization. That's just the way it is.
February 2nd, 1940. With Lepke Buchalter executed, Albert Anastasia stands alone as the head of Murder Incorporated. But there is a new problem. One of his best hitmen, Abe Kid Twist Reles, faces serious charges for a murder he committed in 1933.
Authorities get the goods on him, and he decides it's time to talk.
Reles knows everything that Murder Incorporated has done.
He just proceeded to talk for 11 days. 63 murders that he had seen himself, many of which the cops had never even heard of.
One by one, Reles rats on his former colleagues.
He starts giving up a lot of gangsters.
Eventually, he opens up about the man who runs Murder, Inc.
He remembered a lot of details about one Albert Anastasia.
Among the crimes Reles lays at Anastasia's door is the death of a Brooklyn dock official.
He said, I know about Albert Anastasia personally strangling Peter Panto.
Peter Panto was a union leader who Anastasia personally killed in 1939.
Anastasia personally strangled him with his hands and then buried his corpse in a pit of quicklime.
Kid Twist knows where the body is, and when detectives find Panto's remains, it is a grisly sight. With this evidence and more, prosecutors now have a rock-solid case against the man behind Murder Incorporated, Albert Anastasia.
Reles was the star witness. He was going to put Albert Anastasia and all of Murder Incorporated away.
So, like Lepke before him, Anastasia is forced to go into hiding. With star witness in hand, the authorities go after Anastasia. But he's nowhere to be seen. For the commission, the attention surrounding Anastasia presents a clear and present danger.
It's one thing to have some of these other jabones from Murder Incorporated go away. It's another thing for somebody like Albert Anastasia. That's the problem.
Anastasia knows too many of their dirty secrets and can't risk him being arrested. So now the commission have to step in and fix it for Anastasia. Kid Twist has to be prevented from testifying. November 12th, 1941. The Half Moon Hotel, Coney Island. With days to go before the trial, Abe Kid Twist Reles is in his own guarded room.
That night, the police guard checks on him in his room, 3 a.m. in the morning. He's asleep. Doesn't think anything of it.
And with detectives watching him around the clock, Reles can afford to sleep soundly.
In the morning, they go to check on him. He's not in the bed. The window's open.
It looks like an audacious escape attempt. That is until the detectives survey the scene 6 stories below.
Somebody threw him out a window.
Kid Twist will no longer be testifying in any trials.
Kid Twist got a new moniker. He became the Canary who could sing but could not fly.
With that, the case against Albert Anastasia went out the window.
With his back against the wall, the commission has stepped in to save him. But times have changed for Anastasia. Even though Kid Twist never got to testify, Murder Inc. has suffered in the aftermath of Dewey's relentless campaign.
4 members of Murder Incorporated went to the electric chair. 2 of them became state's witnesses.
So with Luciano behind bars, the commission disbands Murder Incorporated and relegates Anastasia to a lowly underboss position in New York's Mangano crime family. To Anastasia, this is a slap in the face.
He felt that he was now ready to be king.
He didn't want to be second in command or second banana.
He's in no mood to run by the rules of the commission, and it doesn't take long for Anastasia to show how dangerous he can be. In no time, differences arise between Anastasia and his new boss Vincent Mangano and his younger brother Philip.
He decided that Mangano was double-crossing him, wasn't cutting him in on enough of the profits. He may have been a little paranoid. He thought Mangano might be out to kill him.
But not if Anastasia can help it.
Anastasia then decides, I have a solution. I will kill Vincent Mangano, and I will kill his brother.
Before long, Philip Mangano's body is found in a Brooklyn marsh. Shortly afterwards, Vincent, the boss, vanishes and is never seen again.
Anastasia was tough enough and perhaps smart enough to act first. Kill before you're killed.
By now, he has broken nearly every rule in the book. And on facing the commission to explain himself, he can't be certain of their reaction.
The biggest violation was trying to kill a boss without the authorization of the commission.
But Anastasia's gamble pays off. To keep the peace, the commission accept his reason of self-defense. But with the seeds of doubt sown, the commission becomes increasingly wary of Anastasia.
Members of the commission began to see Anastasia as a threat.
They realized that in Anastasia, they were looking at absolute naked homicidal power, madness. And they understood he was just as likely to turn on them as anybody else.
Especially one member of the mafia who was about to make a power grab of his own, Vito Genovese.
Vito Genovese began to talk to the other people on the commission and say, look, I told you, this guy is a nut. He's a homicidal maniac. He's doing crazy things.
And soon Anastasia will give Genovese the excuse he's looking for to bring him down. Albert Anastasia is at the height of his power.
He's a multimillionaire. He lives in a beautiful mansion. Everything is beautiful, right? No. Albert wants more. And to get more, he starts to make mistakes, big mistakes. Mistake number one, Arnold Schuster.
That same year, with the reckless killing of Arnold Schuster, the civic hero who helps bring down the infamous bank robber Willie Sutton, Anastasia breaks one of the cardinal rules of the modern mafia. You don't kill civilians. Predictably, the public are outraged.
This is sensational. I mean, the papers are full of this. Who would kill this guy, this public spirited citizen, this guy who's gotten a medal from the mayor, this wonderful person? Well, this gets back to the commission, which calls Albert on the carpet. Because one of the big rules for the commission, you do not kill civilians. It just brings too much heat and it's pointless. It's not good for business. Albert realizes, I made a mistake. It's a big mistake.
But Anastasia still doesn't realize the true scale of his mistake. His biggest rival on the commission, however, can see it clearly. Vito Genovese is a rising boss. He's ambitious and calculating and keen to eliminate any competition.
Genovese is everything Anastasia is not if your ultimate goal is the top job.
Genovese has little difficulty persuading a nervous commission that Anastasia is a dangerous liability.
There was an atmosphere of suspicion about Albert.
All Genovese needs is one more slip-up from Anastasia, and he doesn't have to wait too long. Anastasia, like most mob bosses, wants to expand his empire.
Albert simply was not going to be satisfied unless he had more.
And he has his eyes set on a piece of gambling mecca.
Anastasia started hinting that he wanted to move into Cuba. He sent out signals that he was leading the top, most powerful, influential, and important family.
But there is a problem. Cuba is already mafia territory. The lucrative gambling operations there are run by Meyer Lansky, one of the most powerful men in the world of organized crime.
Lansky has opened several gambling casinos down there. He's in partnership with a guy named Santo Traficant, who's head of the Tampa Mafia. Everybody has got a little slice. It's very delicate. Now suddenly, here comes Anastasia like a bull in a china shop.
Anastasia wants a piece of the action and won't take no for an answer. It's a bold move.
He wants this. He wants a major slice. To actually find him meeting with Cuban officials, he's going to set up his own operation.
His play in Havana seemed like a crazy move from the outside.
Lansky and his partners warn Anastasia to keep out, but Anastasia, resentful and ambitious, is in no listening mood. Soon the dispute goes to the commission.
They go to commission and say, you got this crazy man down here. He's going to upset everything. We've worked this out. Everybody's getting their slice. Everything is fine. And now suddenly this. What does he need Havana for? This is insanity. And they said, you're going to have to do something.
This time, Anastasia has finally gone a step too far. It's all Genovese needs to convince the commission that Anastasia's time is up.
I have told you repeatedly, and now you see what I meant. This guy has got to go.
By throwing his weight around, and the very fear that he was a threat to them, any one of them, was enough for them to band together and put out a hit job on one Albert Anastasia.
The man who ran the mafia's death squad is now a dead man walking. With the green light, Genovese puts the wheels of murder into motion. It's a classic move straight out of the movies. Genovese knows where Anastasia is vulnerable. October 25th, 1957, Grasso's barbershop, New York. Anastasia relaxes as he gets his daily shave and trim.
He's so unworried that he doesn't even worry about having somebody with him while he's in this barber chair.
His bodyguard is across the street getting breakfast. Suddenly, two armed men burst in and open fire.
They hit him about 5 times, but they're not fatal shots at this point because he's moving now, boom, boom, and they're hitting him in the arm, shoulder, and stuff. Now he's disoriented. He's looking in the mirror. He's swinging at the mirror when the guys are behind him. And he's stumbling around. He trips down the ground. One of the gangsters comes up to him and puts the final shot right into his head.
The guy who had lived by the gun now died by the gun.
Albert Anastasia is laid to rest. As a testament to his brutal character, only a handful of mourners attend his funeral.
It really shows you where Anastasia was as far as his colleagues. None of them attended the funeral. It was his wife, some immediate family members, maybe a couple of associates, but for a guy that was the head of a crime family, there was nobody there.
Anastasia's life as a whole characterizes the evolution of the mafia.
If Albert Anastasia had any legacy, it was simply this. If you get a reputation as a violent, too ruthless boss, then you were going to be finished too. It was an era where they wanted more sophisticated, well-organized crime. No violent hits, no bodies. Not just somebody who had a reputation of being known as the Mad Hatter or a great executioner.
Anastasia's violence defined an era that became notorious, one celebrated in movies and popular culture. He survived in Luciano's new mafia at the helm of Murder Incorporated. But when this organization ceases to exist, he becomes obsolete and meets a violent end, befitting the mob's merchant of death.